Hello and welcome to Soothing Pod's Sleep Stories. My name is Chris, and tonight we will relax and unwind with an abridged retelling of Friedrich Nietzsche's Thus Spoke Zarathustra. Explore the profound philosophical themes of wisdom, transformation, and self-discovery in this timeless work. Let the serene narration of this iconic text ease your mind and guide you into a peaceful and restful sleep. Before we begin our tale, let's take time to relax and let go of the stresses of the day. Close your eyes and take a deep, steady breath in. As you exhale, let go of any tension or doubt lingering within you. Allow yourself to settle into the present moment, free from distractions, open to the possibilities that lie within. Bring your attention to your breath, the steady rhythm that sustains you. With each inhale, imagine drawing in clarity and purpose. And with each exhale, release anything holding you back. Now, imagine standing at the edge of a beautiful path. This path represents your journey, your destiny. It winds gently before you, illuminated by a soft, golden light. Feel the excitement and calmness as you realize that this path is yours to create. Every step forward is guided by the choices you make, the strength you carry, and the potential within you. Visualize a light glowing in your chest, warm and steady. This light is your inner power, your drive, your capability to take control of your destiny. With each breath, feel this light growing brighter, filling you with confidence and determination. As you walk this path in your mind, recognize the tools and strengths you already possess. Perhaps it's your courage, your kindness, or your resilience. These qualities are like stars in the sky, guiding you forward. They are reminders that you are capable of achieving your goals and shaping the life you desire. Picture yourself reaching out to the world around you, knowing that while life may bring challenges, you hold the power to navigate them. You can adapt, overcome, and thrive because your destiny is not set. It is shaped by the choices you make and the actions you take. Take a deep breath and feel the empowerment within you. You are not a passive observer in life. You are the creator of your story. You hold the power to turn dreams into reality, to walk forward with intention and purpose. When you're ready, gently bring your awareness back to the present moment. Keep your eyes closed, but carry within you the knowledge that you have the power to control your destiny. And now that you are relaxed, we can begin our story. When Zarathustra was 30 years old, he left his home and went to live in the mountains. For 10 years, he dwelt in solitude, filling his heart with wisdom and his eyes with the vastness of the sky. But at last, his spirit grew restless, and he decided to return to humanity, like the sun that must descend to nourish the earth. I have tarried long enough on these heights, he said to himself. Now I must go down to my friends, and also to my enemies, for I have gifts to share. I must bring the light of my wisdom to the people, as the sun brings light to the valleys. As he descended the mountain, Zarathustra met an old saint in the forest. The saint, who had not yet heard of Zarathustra's fame, asked him, "Why do you come to disturb the peace of the world? Stay in your solitude, where you can pray and sing to God. What do you seek among men?" Zarathustra replied, "What is God to me? I bring no prayers, only a gift. I bring the Übermensch, the overman, who shall be the meaning of the earth. The Übermensch is not a god, nor a king, nor a hero of old. He is the one who creates new values, who dares to live beyond good and evil, who embraces life in all its beauty and terror. Let man be a bridge to this higher being, for man is something that must be overcome." The saint shook his head. "You speak in riddles," he said. "The people will not understand you. They are content with their little joys and little sorrows. Go back to your mountains, Zarathustra, and leave them to their peace." But Zarathustra was undeterred. He continued his journey until he reached a town at the edge of the forest. There, in the marketplace, he found a crowd gathered to watch a tightrope walker perform. Seizing the moment, Zarathustra climbed onto a platform and addressed the people. "Listen, for I bring you a message," he cried. "Man is a rope stretched between the beast and the Übermensch. You are not an end, but a bridge. You must overcome yourselves, leaving behind the comfort of the beast and striving toward the greatness of the Übermensch. Do not cling to what you are. Become what you are meant to be. The Übermensch is the one who overcomes himself, who transforms his chaos into stars. The crowd stared at Zarathustra, their faces blank with confusion. Some scratched their heads, while others laughed nervously. They were unsure whether Zarathustra was a prophet or a madman. But Zarathustra would not be deterred. But beware, Zarathustra continued. I must also speak of the last man, the opposite of the Übermensch. The last man has invented happiness. The last man clings to comfort despite greatness and no longer strives, creates, or dreams. He looks at the stars and wonders what they are for. He hears of love and wonders. Why bother? He has traded his soul for comfort, his dreams for security, and his humanity for a life without struggle. The crowd stared at Zarathustra in silence, then burst into laughter. Zarathustra's heart grew heavy. He realized that the people were not ready for his message. They could not see beyond their small lives and small desires. Disheartened, he left the marketplace and wandered into the night. As he walked, he reflected on his failure. The people are deaf to my words, he thought. But perhaps there are a few who will listen. A few who are ready to become bridges to the Übermensch. I must seek them out, for they are my true disciples. And so, Zarathustra resolved to speak not to the masses, but to individuals, to those who yearned for something greater, who were willing to risk everything for the sake of becoming who they were. With this new purpose, he set out once more, carrying the flame of his wisdom into the darkness. After leaving the town, Zarathustra wandered through forests and valleys, seeking those who might understand his message. Along the way, he encountered small groups of travelers, hermits, and seekers, people who were discontent with the world, but unsure how to change it. To them, Zarathustra began to share his teachings, each lesson a step on the path to the Übermensch. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Zarathustra sat with a group of young disciples around a campfire. They had followed him from the town, curious about his words, but still unsure of their meaning. Seeing their confusion, Zarathustra began to speak. "I will tell you of the 3 metamorphoses of the spirit," he began, his voice carrying the weight of prophecy. "First, the spirit becomes a camel, strong, patient, and burdened. It kneels in the desert of duty, bearing the weight of tradition, morality, and the expectations of others. This is the spirit of obedience. But it is only the beginning." He paused, letting his words sink into the stillness. "Then the spirit becomes a lion," he continued. "It roars in the wilderness, saying no to the old gods, the old values, and the old ways. It fights for its freedom, tearing down the tablets of thou shalt and thou shalt not. But even the lion is not the end, for it can only destroy, not create." Zarathustra's eyes gleamed as he spoke the final transformation. At last, the spirit becomes a child, innocent, curious, and free. The child says yes to life, creating new values and dancing in the light of its own will. It is a new beginning, a wheel rolling out of its own accord. He looked at his disciples, their faces alight with wonder and doubt. "So, I ask you, are you camels, lions, or children? Are you ready to shed your burdens, roar your no, and become creators of new worlds?" The disciples sat in silence, their faces illuminated by the fire. Some nodded thoughtfully, while others stared into the flames, wrestling with Zarathustra's words. The next day, Zarathustra and his disciples came upon a hermit who lived in a cave high in the mountains. The hermit spoke of heaven, hell, and the salvation of the soul. He urged them to turn away from the earth and seek meaning in the afterlife. When the hermit finished speaking, Zarathustra turned to his disciples and said, "Beware the afterworldly, those who despise the body and the earth. They are sick, poisoned by their own despair. They cannot endure the beauty and pain of this world, so they invent another, a world beyond the stars, a world of shadows and illusions. But I say to you, remain faithful to the earth. Do not let those who speak of otherworldly hopes deceive you. They are poisoners, whether they know it or not. The earth is your home, and your body is your vessel. Embrace them, for they are the source of your strength and your joy. The Übermensch does not seek salvation in the afterlife. He creates meaning here and now. Let the afterworldly fade into the darkness, for they are the enemies of life. The hermit scowled and retreated into his cave, but the disciples felt a spark of understanding. They began to see the earth not as a prison, but as a canvas on which they could paint their dreams. As Zarathustra and his disciples descended the mountain, they passed through a village where a group of moralists preached virtue and righteousness. Villagers listened eagerly, nodding at every word. Zarathustra stopped and addressed his disciples. These teachers of virtue speak of good and evil, but their words are hollow. They preach obedience, humility, and self-denial, but they do not understand the true nature of virtue. Virtue is not a set of rules imposed from without. It is the expression of one's innermost will. The true creator of values does not say, "You must be good." The true creator says, "I will be great." He does not follow the herd. He blazes his own trail. I say to you, be wolves, not sheep. Create your own values, and let your virtue be a reflection of your deepest desires. Do not let others define what is good and evil for you. The villagers stared at Zarathustra in shock, but his disciples felt a fire ignite within them. They began to question the values that they had been taught and to dream of creating their own. One night, as Zarathustra and his disciples rested in a forest clearing, a man approached them, his eyes burning with resentment. He spoke of injustice, betrayal, and his desire for revenge. Zarathustra listened quietly, then said, "Beware the tarantulas, those who preach equality out of envy and revenge. They are poisonous, and their bite spreads hatred and despair. The tarantulas tell us they will make all men equal, but what they mean is they will drag the great down to their level They could not endure the sight of those who rise above them, so they seek to punish and destroy. But I say to you, do not let their poison infect you. Rise above their hatred and do not seek revenge. The Übermensch does not waste his energy on petty grievances. He creates, he overcomes, he affirms life. Let the tarantulas spin their webs in the shadows, while you walk in the light. The man's anger faded, and he sat down, deep in thought. Zarathustra's disciples too felt the weight of his words. They began to see resentment for what it was, a poison that could destroy them if they let it. Zarathustra's journey was not always easy. He often faced indifference from the people he spoke to. At times, he doubted himself and felt incredibly lonely. Yet through these struggles, he found new strength and a deeper understanding of the world. One morning, Zarathustra climbed a steep mountain path, his disciples following behind. As they reached a plateau, they saw a young man sitting beneath a tall, gnarled tree. The man's face was etched with frustration, and he stared at the ground as if weighed down by invisible chains. Zarathustra approached him and said, "Why do you sit here in shadow, young man? What troubles your spirit?" The young man looked up, his eyes filled with despair. "I feel trapped," he said. "I want to grow, to reach new heights, but I am held back by my doubts and fears. I see others achieving greatness, but I remain rooted to the ground." Zarathustra pointed to the tree towering above them. "Do you see this tree?" he asked. "It grows tall not because it is free from struggle, but because it embraces it. Its roots cling to the rocks, and its branches stretch toward the sun, enduring wind and storm. It does not ask, 'Why am I here?' It simply grows. You too must grow. Do not fear the heights or the storms. Your doubts and fears are not chains. They are the soil from which you will rise. Strive for the light and let your spirit become a tree that reaches for the stars." The young man's eyes widened, and he stood up, his posture straightening as if a weight had been lifted. Zarathustra's disciples too felt inspired, their own doubts melting away in the face of his words. Later that day, Zarathustra and his disciples passed through a village where a group of saints preached about the afterlife. They spoke of death as a release, a liberation from the suffering of the world. Zarathustra stopped and addressed his disciples. "Beware the preachers of death," he said. "They are sick, and their sickness infects others. They cannot endure the beauty and pain of life, so they glorify death as an escape. Life is not a burden to be cast off. It is a gift to be embraced. The Übermensch does not flee from suffering. He transforms it into strength. He does not seek death. He creates meaning in life. These preachers of death are like vultures, circling above the living, waiting to feast on their despair. Do not listen to them. Instead, dance on the edge of the abyss, and let your joy be a defiance of their gloom." The villagers stared at Zarathustra, some in anger, some in confusion, but his disciples felt a fire ignite within them, a determination to live fully and fearlessly. That night, Zarathustra sat alone on a rocky outcrop, gazing at the stars. His disciples slept nearby, but he could not rest. Deep loneliness filled his heart, a longing for those who could understand his message and share his vision. He began to sing softly, his voice carrying on the night wind. "O night, you are my companion, my confidant. You understand my silence, my solitude. But even you cannot ease the ache in my soul. A longing for those who will walk beside me on this path. I love humanity, but my love is a heavy burden. I see their potential, their greatness, but they turn away, blinded by their small desires. How can I make them see? How can I awaken them to the beauty of the Übermensch?" As he sang, a tear rolled down his cheek, but his voice did not waver. He knew that his loneliness was part of his journey, a price he must pay for his vision. The next evening, Zarathustra and his disciples came upon a meadow where a group of travelers danced around a bonfire. The flames leapt into the sky, and the air was filled with music and laughter. Zarathustra joined the dance, his movements fluid and joyful. As he danced, he began to sing. "Life, you are my partner, my muse. You are wild and untamed, full of beauty and terror. I love you not despite your chaos, but because of it. You are the eternal recurrence, the endless cycle of creation and destruction. Wisdom, you are my guide, my companion. You show me the depths of existence the mysteries of the universe. Together, we dance on the edge of the abyss, our laughter echoing in the void. Let us dance, my friends, for life is a celebration, a game. The travelers and disciples joined in the dance, their spirits lifted by Zarathustra's words. For a moment, they felt the weight of the world fall away, replaced by a sense of freedom and possibility. As Zarathustra's journey continued, he found himself drawn back to the solitude of his mountain cave. The weight of his teachings and the resistance of the world had taken their toll, and he needed time to reflect and renew his spirit. But even in solitude, he could not escape the profound questions that haunted him. Questions about the nature of life, the meaning of existence, and the ultimate test of the Übermensch. One day, as Zarathustra sat in the dim light of his cave, a strange thought seized him. A thought so heavy that it felt like a physical weight pressing on his chest. It was the idea of eternal recurrence. The notion that every moment of his life, every joy and every pain would repeat itself infinitely in an endless cycle. At first, the thought filled him with dread. He imagined reliving his struggles, his loneliness, his failures, over and over again, with no escape. What if this is true? He whispered to himself. What if I must live this life again and again forever? What if every mistake I've made, every moment of despair, every loss I've suffered will happen again and again without end? For days, Zarathustra lay in his cave, wrestling with the idea. He felt as if he was sick, his spirit weighed down by the enormity of the thought. But slowly, as he confronted his fear, a new understanding began to dawn. What if, he thought, this is the ultimate test of how I've lived my life? If I had to live my life over exactly the same, could I say I've lived it well? Could I embrace every moment, every joy, every pain as part of who I am? Perhaps this is the challenge we face, to live in such a way that we would gladly relive every moment, even the hardest ones, because they are part of our journey. To say yes to a life recurring is to say yes to myself, to my choices, to my destiny. It is to accept the past, embrace the present, and create a future worth reliving. With this realization, Zarathustra rose from his bed, his strength returning. He stepped out of the cave and into the sunlight, his heart filled with a new sense of purpose. "I have overcome myself," he declared. "I have embraced the eternal recurrence, and in doing so, I have affirmed life itself." As Zarathustra descended from the mountains, he felt a new urgency in his mission. He knew that the world was still dominated by the values of the last man: comfort, safety, mediocrity, and that the Übermensch was still a distant dream. But he also knew that the seeds of greatness lay within every human heart, waiting to be awakened. One evening, as he stood before a gathering of seekers and disciples, Zarathustra delivered his most impassioned speech yet. "I call upon the higher men," he cried, his voice ringing out like a bell. "You who feel the weight of the world, who yearn for something greater, who are willing to risk everything for the sake of becoming who you are. You are the bridges to the Übermensch. The Übermensch is not a god, nor a king, nor a hero of old. He is the one who creates new values, who embraces life in all its beauty and terror, who says yes to eternal recurrence. He is the meaning of the earth, the goal of humanity's journey. But the path to Übermensch is not easy. It requires courage, creativity, and the willingness to confront your deepest fears. It requires you to reject the values of the last man and to strive for something higher. I call upon you, higher men, to rise above the herd, to create your own values, and to become who you are. The world needs you, for you are the future of humanity." The crowd listened, their hearts stirred by Zarathustra's words. Some felt a fire ignite within them, a determination to rise above their small lives and strive for greatness. Others felt fear, unsure if they were ready for such a journey. But all felt the weight of Zarathustra's challenge and the possibility of a new way of living. After many months of wandering, teaching, and struggling, Zarathustra found himself standing at the foot of the mountain where his journey had begun. His disciples followed behind him, their faces filled with a mixture of admiration and uncertainty. They had learned much from him, but Zarathustra could see they were not yet ready to fully embrace his teachings. One evening, as they camped beneath the stars, Zarathustra gathered his disciples around him. "My friends," he said, his voice gentle but firm, "the time has come for me to return to my solitude. I have shared with you all that I can, but the final step must be your own. The path to the Übermensch is not one I can walk for you. You must find it within yourselves." The disciples looked at him with sadness and confusion. "But how will we know when we are ready?" one of them asked. Zarathustra smiled. "You will know," he said, "when you can look at your life and say, 'This is my will. I would live it again and again, exactly as it is.' When you can embrace the eternal recurrence not as a burden, but as a joy, then you will be ready. Remember, the Übermensch is not a distant goal, but a way of living. It is the courage to create your own values, the strength to overcome your fears, and the wisdom to affirm life in all its beauty and terror. It is the willingness to say yes to every moment, even the hardest ones, because they are a part of who you are." The disciples nodded, though some still looked uncertain. Zarathustra knew that his words would take time to bear fruit, and that each of them must find their own way. The next morning, as the sun rose over the mountains, Zarathustra bid his disciples farewell. "Go now," he said, "and live your lives with passion and purpose. Create new values. Embrace the eternal recurrence and strive to become who you are. I will return to my solitude, but my spirit will be with you always." As he climbed the mountain path, Zarathustra felt a deep sense of peace. He knew that his work was not finished, but he also knew that he had planted seeds that would one day grow. The journey to the Übermensch was a long and difficult one, but it was a journey worth taking. When he reached the summit, Zarathustra stood for a moment, gazing at the horizon. The world stretched out before him, vast and beautiful, filled with endless possibilities. He took a deep breath, feeling the weight of his teachings and the promise of the future. "This is my will," he whispered. "This is my joy. This is my eternal recurrence." And with that, Zarathustra turned and stepped into the solitude of his cave, ready to continue his journey in the quiet of his own heart. I hope you enjoyed this story, and it has brought you a night of peaceful, restful sleep. Please join me again tomorrow night for another sleep story. Until then, sweet dreams.